weekly conference with the special topic of belonging together, migrants, refugees, displaced persons, and global solidarity. We have an exciting schedule for day one, and we will start in a few minutes. I just want to give you some general informations for today. Our panels will be structured in 10-minute inputs, presentations by our dear speakers, followed by roughly 10 to 20 minutes long Q&A sessions. So please do not hesitate to write your questions in the comment section on YouTube. I will collect them during the talk and the sessions afterwards. Also feel free to share, like, and subscribe the link and to the Fratelli Tutti YouTube channel to spread the word about our conference. All streams will stay online so that especially all the viewers living in the American and African time zones will be able to rewatch all the talks. And furthermore, you can be a part of a broader discussion about this conference over the platform Blue Sky with the special hashtag FT25. Fratelli Tutti 25. So, and now without further ado, we will open the European Hub. Our first talker today is Dr. Antonio Montañez Jimenez. Dr. Jimenez is a Fulbright visiting scholar at the University of Miami and the Margarita Salas postdoctoral fellow affiliated with the School of Anthropology and Museum Ethnography at the University of Oxford and ISR Universidad Autónoma de Barcelona, Spain. And among many great things, Dr. Jimenez wrote a multi-awarded PhD dissertation at the University of St. Andrews and collaborated with the Universidad Autónoma in Barcelona, exploring the role of evangelical Pentecostal Christianity in reshaping the worldviews, values, gender ideals, and sociability patterns and notions of identity among Spanish and Romani Gitanos. Today, Dr. Jimenez will give us a talk called Christianity, Prosperity, Gospel, and Migration. And his talk will interrogate the role of religion in spreading individualist values and neoliberal and entrepreneurship ideas through pro-market interpretations of biblical principles. Dear Dr. Jimenez, thank you for attending this talk, and now the stage is yours.
Thank you for your wonderful presentation, Vidya. First of all, I like to thank you for the invitation. I'm very excited to be here today, and also I would like to extend my thank you to Felix Becker, also again to Vidya Gross from the Forum for Intercultural Dialogue for facilitating my participation in the conference. Yeah, my name is Antonio. For the last 10 years, I've been researching Christian Pentecostal communities in Spain and the United States. I presume most of you are familiar with the theological underpinnings of the Pentecostal faith, but if not, evangelical Pentecostalism is a spiritual force that has rapidly swept across many countries for several decades now. Pentecostal churches mark the conversion or born-again experience as central to their religious identity. They also emphasize the figure of the Holy Spirit and assert that converted believers receive spiritual gifts such as speaking in tongues, prophecy, and healing to spread the gospel. As it's been mentioned before, my PhD research involved a study of Spanish Romani, also known as Gypsies, conversion to Pentecostal Christianity, and progressively my research is shifting, and now I'm more focusing on exploring the role of Christian communities in shaping migrants' identities, sense of belonging, and socioeconomic projects in Spain and partially in the United States. I define myself as a sociologist/anthropologist, meaning that I primarily use ethnographic methodologies. Ethnography, simply stated, is the study of people in their own environment using methods such as participant observation or face-to-face interviewing. Ethnography produces first-hand detailed account of a given community in an attempt to acquire a comprehensive understanding of the circumstances of the people being studied. We ethnographers spend years in the place of study that we call field. So migration and religion are definitely two enduring social phenomena in human experience. Actually, contemporary European societies face a paradoxical trend. On the one hand, long-standing processes of secularization shape the values, identities, and beliefs of many European citizens and institutions. But on the other hand, religion has found its way back into Europe mainly through the impact of migration waves, adding to the melting pot and rich spiritual traditions conforming European national and ethnic identities. And my individual project seeks to further our understanding of the relationship between migration patterns and the reemergence of old and new forms of religion in European societies. Um, Dominant approaches to religion and migration usually understand religion as a buffer, as a means of preserving cultural identities and social cohesion for migrants in hostile environments. They also highlight the potential conflictual nature of multicultural cohabitation. Sometimes they also focus on the impact of religious networks in assisting migrations in need. Obviously, I appreciate the merit of these approaches, they are great. But in my project, I also attempt to redirect our gaze to other aspects of spiritual experiences in migratory settings, such as the formation of aspirational subjects or the fostering of social ambitions. So today I will share some insights and present some reflections emerging from my ongoing research project on the prosperity gospel in Spain. It's at an early stage of development, I must confess, so I don't have an overwhelming amount of findings to share, but however, I think I'm in a position to share some insights. Um, the prosperity gospel can be defined as a Christian movement predicated on a set of controversial beliefs, advocating that it is God's will for Christians to be wealthy, healthy, and successful. Some scholars argue that the link between the genesis of the prosperity gospel and the wider culture of Christianity in North America, they emphasize that link. And also note that ideas, funding, and sometimes even media resources originate primarily, albeit not exclusively, from the United States. Prosperity gospel pastors, I would say they could fit within the model of the pastorpreneurs, sorry, which is a mode of religion leadership based on mainly individual charisma, whose legitimacy doesn't depend on denominational traditions. Actually, prosperity gospel leaders often consider themselves messengers of God, whose mission is to transform the world and lead believers to social and financial prominences. For many of them, Christians ascending social mobility might accelerate the arrival of Christ and also contributes to the spiritual forces of good triumphing over evil. And the global expansion of the prosperity gospel has merited a great deal scholarly attention from sociologists, anthropologists, religious studies scholars in different geographical settings. My ongoing projects in particular lies at the intersection of religion and migration studies, and it involves the study of Latin American migrants or with Latin American background. Um, and why Spain? Why Spain is important? Well, due to the colonial history and shared cultural legacies and language, Spain is the most important European hub for the reception of Latin American migration. And Latin American migrants as a whole are the largest migrant community in the country. It's worth noting that the prosperity gospel is a very recent phenomenon in the landscape of Spanish Christianity, which has been, traditionally dominated by the political and social power of the Spanish Catholic Church. And sorry, only recent years have evangelical churches emerged in the shadow of the history of Catholicism in the country. So far, my ethnographic work has been carried out in the city of Madrid, the capital of Spain. And the first prosperity gospel I visited in Madrid was located in an extremely spatially marginalized area made up of social housing and high unemployment rates, inhabited primarily by Roma gypsy families or Latin American immigrants, also working class people with minimal economic resources. And the first thing that I learned in that church was the law, what they call the law of the sowing and harvesting. And this law did state that should believers plant what they call a seed, uh, God will provide material and spiritual goods with exponential returns in the form of a blessing. Blessing can be understood as money, happiness, well-being, miracles, and so on. several examples of seed faith actions. Again, those which God rewards with prosperity or with blessing includes time spent promoting, organizing, assisting, and participating in congregational activities, as well as financial investment, donations, and tithes for the church. On many occasions, I heard Christians stating that those Christians with a strong spiritual rapport with God are likely to be comprehensively blessed in every aspect of their lives. Um, and actually, they also argue that the lack of improvement or growth in one aspect of Christian lives indicates the presence of evil spirits ruling over areas of their minds and bodies. um, Cosmologically, they also argue that when Christians rule over the world, pastors, they often state, shall Jesus Christ descend to lead them to heaven. In the same vein, I often heard prosperity gospel pastors affirming that one of the main goals in the doctrine is that empowering Christians by releasing them from a welfare or victim mentality. Um, they claim that Christian believers must achieve success on their own only with the help of God, as opposed to the complacency of those who depend on human help or the state. Um, the global influence of prosperity gospel has aroused criticism within the Christian world, right? As many evangelical and non-evangelical Christian believers have denounced its ethnocentric and imperialistic character, as well as its alliance with hegemonic capitalist powers. Um, Actually, prosperity gospel is often depicted in a very unflattering fashion as a deceptive and money-oriented American version of Christianity. Some authors have also argued that in the prosperity gospel churches, money is the most significant object in the creation of a common language, seen both as the mode of organizing churches and as the means of entering in contact with God, right? And this allegedly social aspirations-oriented way of experiencing the Christian faith has often been the explaining factor used in extensive media coverage to account for deceitful and criminal accusations, few of which has actually, this is true, led to convictions for financial fraud against some prosperity leaders and popular televangelists. However, some scholars have contested representations of prosperity gospel churches as money-oriented structures that foster self-interest or greediness, and pastors as con artists that scam naive religious believers. Instead, some scholars propose a more nuanced approach that integrates the importance of money for the prosperity gospel doctrine into a more comprehensive examination of Christianity as a complex social sphere defined by reciprocal exchange from which a particular sense of morality might emerge. Uh, Some prosperity gospel churches show ethical concerns on how money is earned, spent, and shared with others, as well as genuine care for the financial improvement of fellow Christians, and these concerns are, for many, an intrinsic part of the Pentecostal Christian moral conscience. Be that as it may, I think the eruption of prosperity gospel in the European landscape, in this case in the South European landscape, invite us to reflect on what are the limits and possibilities of Christianity in migratory settings, and which are the values shaping our engagement with migrants' experience and needs, also remaining attentive to potential harm caused by potential predatory practices. So I believe is the collective role of Christian churches as a moral community to elucidate what is the right approach to engage with some migrant communities in need of assistance, reassurance, and compassion, as well as to, I think this is also important, to recognize the miscellaneous set of demands arising from diverse migrant trajectories and circumstances. I think this is all. I think I did well with time. Thank you all for listening. I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback and questions.
Yeah, Antonio, thank you so much for your talk. That was really interesting because I have to say that I knew what a little bit what prosperity of gospel is about, but not as detailed as you just gave it to us. What maybe interests me as a little question for you is you closed kind of with the statement that the Christian church has to figure out its best way to engage in the help of people who are either migrants and are living in bad situations or are refugees. Um, Although already talked about it, could you maybe elaborate a little bit where the potentials for prosperity gospel maybe lays, especially when it's about money that you mentioned? So is there a will to engage in that and to use the money that is there? And isn't also kind of in the belief of prosperity gospel isn't God also giving you the quest of using the money for the people in need? If you could elaborate a little bit more on that.
That's a brilliant question. Thank you very much. Um, Also a very complicated one.
Yes, sorry.
Um, that's all right. I mean, it's good that you make me think. Well, first of all, my point was that maybe perhaps there's not the right Christian approach to migrants, and we need to recognize the fact that migrants come with a different set of like different set of circumstances, and maybe what might work for some migrant community might not work for another, right? So I think that for some migrant communities, um, attending prosperity gospel churches might work, but I don't think it prosperity gospel's doctrine is the right approach to help people that are really, really, really need, like refugees or so on. Um, from what I know, and I don't want to offer like a monodimensional image or of prosperity gospel church because I'm starting to collaborate and work with them, so I don't have the whole picture. But from my understanding is that they don't focus so much in refugees. They are more interested in showing society that Christian can prosper. And for that, they usually focused on people belonging to a different strata, different socioeconomical background. But don't take my word for it in that um, perhaps some prosperity gospel churches also are very attentive to that phenomenon. But from my engaged experience with them so far, which is not that long or that great, um, that's not the case. But I don't know if I answered your
Yes.
question.
Yes, you answered this perfectly because that's what I was t trying to get on to how many are maybe engaged, or possibly the point that possibly some are engaged, but it could be more. Like it's with a lot of things, and that was really interesting. Also, that you said that it's more about showing that Christianity has the potential to prosper. That's really interesting. Um, yes, thank you so much for your talk. Maybe now for the end, tell us again, where can we find you? Where can we find your work? Um, be free to refer to anything that you want.
Thank you. Well, my work can be, I mean, I usually engage with the public through my Google Scholar account. So you can visit Antonio Montanes Jimenez in Google Scholars and you'll find most of my work. Also, you can follow me on the Oxford Anthropology website. Um, Also, I also show some of my work in the ISOR Sociology of Religion research group at the Autonomous University of Barcelona. So you can follow my work there. And I mean, as soon as you type it my name in Google, I mean, you'll see what I'm doing. Um, so yeah, that's it. I mean, thank you very much for having me. I mean, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully, people like what I'm sharing with you and can engage maybe online, or if someone wants to uh, drop any questions in the comments. I will regularly check the comment sections to try to reply to the best of my ability. So yeah, also feel free to drop me an email. If you'll find my details in the Oxford Anthropology or the SOR Research in Sociology of Religion research group. You'll find my email there. So yeah, if anyone wants to reach out, please feel free. I'm more than willing to engage in pleasant conversation, share activities, collaborations. Yeah, thank you very much.
Amazing. Dr. Jimenez, thank you so much. Yeah, that was our first talk. Thank you also for the listeners who are already there. And our next panel is going to start in 9 to 10 minutes at 12:30. And we are going to hear from Dorothée Krämer. Dorothée Krämer is a social worker at the non-profit German organization SeaWatch. And we will hear from her in 10 minutes. So. Hello, Doro. How are you?
Hello.
Can you
Nice
hear
to
me
meet
good?
you. I can hear you very well. Can you
Ama-
hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly. And
Perfect.
yes, we will start in 3 minutes. Is everything, are you good? Is everything okay? Amazing.
It
That,
seems good. If you can hear me, then everything is fine for me.
yes, the audio is perfect.
Nice.
Are there still some preparations? And like, do you need me to make you co-host so you could potentially share your screen or nothing like that?
I did not prepare any slides,
Okay.
so it's fine
Okay.
like this.
No,
Mm.
amazing. Just a quick technical question. Okay, and then I will let the 2 minutes to 2:30 let go into the land, and then I will quickly give the our viewers an introduction about you and your work, and then I will give over to you. And while we do that, I will collect the questions from YouTube. If we get any, the attendance is right now a little bit low because a lot of our viewers are in the time zones of Africa and America, and they have to catch a little bit sleep. And the big viewership will come in the following days. That's also why we let the talks on YouTube so that everybody can watch them and then after that engage with it. And
Nice.
yes.
Perfect.
Right. And after your talk, I will collect some questions. And then we will do a quick Q&A session. And after that, I will yes, end the talk and refer to the next one. And of course, we'll give a big thank you to you.
Thank you. Nice. All right. Then hear you in 1 minute.
Yes. I'll stop sharing my screen now. And where? Ah, now get my camera on. Hi. So, dear viewers, hello, welcome back. It's time for our next talk. We are joined now by Dorothée Krämer, and Dorothée Krämer is joining us today representing the German nonprofit organization SeaWatch. SeaWatch e.V. is a nonprofit organization that conducts civil search and rescue operations in the central Mediterranean. In the presence of the humanitarian crisis, Sea-Watch provides emergency relief capacities, demands and pushes for rescue operations by the European institutions, and stands up publicly for legal escape routes. Today, Ms. Krämer will give us a talk about rescuing people from drowning in the central Mediterranean and fighting the European border regime. And in this talk, she will portray the work of Sea-Watch and their many amazing activists. So, dear Ms. Krämer, thank you for joining us, and the stage is now yours.
First, I have to unmute myself, okay? But now you can probably hear me. Thank you. Thank you very much for the warm invitation. I'm happy to be here. Yeah, I will start a bit by speaking a bit about Sea-Watch and our work, and explain a bit of the context that we are in. I'm not sure how much the viewers and listeners know about the situation, so I will just give a short overview and introduction. Yeah, so as Mitya said, the Sea-Watch is a civil search and rescue NGO. So we have 2 ships and 2 planes with which we are present in the central Mediterranean, and look out for people in distress and try to rescue them with our boats. Um, and yeah, I want to speak a bit about the situation and the context that we operate in. So our area of operation is the area between Libya and Tunisia, on the African continent, and Malta and Italy on the European continent. This is the area where the 2 continents come pretty close together, and that has always been an area of exchange, of travels, of transfer, of meeting people and cultures. Um, And as it is the sea, there has also always been a tradition of rescuing people, because in the sea people can get into distress, of course, and dangerous situation can come up. And so there has always been this tradition of rescuing people from distress and bringing them to safe places. And this is a tradition that we see, I think, everywhere where there is sea, because people just know, people who are used to the sea know that the sea can be really dangerous, and that everybody can get into a situation where they need help and assistance. And so it has always been this principle of rescuing people from distress, right? And this principle is enshrined also into international maritime law. And so actually has been a strong principle to rescue people in distress and to bring them to safe places. This is also an element that is in the international maritime law, to bring people to places where they are safe after the rescue. So you cannot just bring them anywhere. So this is a bit the context. And then now in the world of global injustice, this area between the two continents became an area where many people try to flee from Libya or Tunisia or from many different places to Europe. And as more and more people tried this or took this, went on boats there, and often got into distress because the sea is very dangerous. The European states at one point stopped to rescue people, to operate rescue missions in this area, all obviously connected to hate against migrants and people who are trying to flee. And this was around 10 years ago when the European states officially backed out of rescue missions. And this then again was the moment when different civil society organizations came into place to operate ships in this area. So this is the starting moment of what we now call the civil fleet, which consists of various organizations from different countries that have ships in the central Mediterranean, and try to find boats in distress and bring those people to safe places. And what we see now is that there's a constant struggle and fight between, on the one hand, European member states, the European Union, that try everything to stop people from being rescued and to be brought to Europe, and to stop migration, and to stop people, and to build more walls, more borders, to militarize the borders, to throw people into prisons, to make deals with autocrats or militias in different countries on the African continent, for them to stop people from migrating and from moving. And then on the other hand, there's civil society, and of course the people who are trying to move, that try to find options for people to manage to flee safely and not to drown, basically, not to drown in the central Mediterranean, or be brought back to Libya, for example, where they experience torture and rape and modern slavery, basically. To make this a bit more comprehensible, maybe what this means or what our work looks like, I want to explain a bit the situation from last March, almost 1 year ago now, when our ship SeaWatch 5 was in the area of operation, looking for boats in distress, and eventually found a boat in distress. They wanted to conduct the rescue, and then the Libyan militia that is often referred to as so-called Libyan Coast Guards, because the EU tries to pretend it's an actual Coast Guard, but instead it's a militia that tries to abduct people and bring them back to Libya. So this actor arrived during the rescue and wanted to stop the rescue, but eventually our ship managed to rescue the people from distress. There were 4 people on this boat that was in distress, that were in a very, very critical medical condition. So what our crew did was to try to call Malta, to call Italy, to call Tunisia, and ask these states to perform a medical evacuation, so to send a helicopter for these people to be brought to a hospital. But all the states said they would not do it. They all referred to each other. Italy said, call Tunisia. Tunisia said, call Malta. Malta said, call Italy. So it was a situation of complete inactivity of all of the states. And then one of the patients shortly after died from the injuries he suffered on the distress case before. So that was a very, very tough situation for our crew, obviously. And then once we came to Italy, once we managed to get a port assigned where we could disembark the people that were rescued from distress, Italy sanctioned our ship and said we didn't comply to like crazy rules they put in order, and detained our ship for 20 days, and we like threatened us with paying a fine. And then we also learned that Frontex, the European Border Agency, was on scene on this day with an airplane. So they were monitoring the sea. They saw the boat in distress, but they did not inform us about it because they do not want us to rescue them, but instead they want the Libyan militias to abduct them and bring them back to Libya. So this is a bit of the situation that we find ourselves in and where we fight. And I think this criminalization through different states like Italy and Malta, and also the Germany in parts, and also the European Commission as such, or the European Union. This is nothing new. This has happened for the last 10 years since civil search and rescue exists. It was always a constant. They always tried to stop us from being in this area, from calling out the human rights violations that are happening there, and from rescuing people. But I really think that in the past years, or maybe also just currently, we really see a new level of escalation, a new shift, where in Italy we have a fascist government, right, that is openly, where the European Commission is openly cooperating with them and like speaking about, oh, nice ideas, let's try this on a broader scale. And I really think that we see a coalition there between the extreme right and conservative parties and actors on a political level, where the extreme right spreads their hate about people, about migrating people, about Black people, and conservatives like take over these narratives, cooperate with them, and bring this actually into practice, these policies. I think as one example, maybe in Germany we are just in the pre-election phase, and the leader of the German Conservative parties, who's very likely to become the next chancellor, he also openly calls to implement policies that violate international human rights, that violate EU law, and that also violate the German constitution. So I really think this is an unprecedented level that we witness right now. And that's really scary, I think. And I think it's really important to see that people always migrated. I think it's impossible to think, even to imagine human history without migration, right? It's just not possible, because this is really one of the core element of human existence, maybe to move, to go to different places, to settle, to start a new life in different places. And all these rules and regulations and these attempts to manage migration, what they do is just they don't stop migration, because it's not like you cannot stop it, but they make it more dangerous. They lead to a lot of suffering. They lead to a lot of deaths on borders in the Mediterranean, but also in many other places and areas, and they really foster and support this inequality that already exists between like people with a strong passport. Like, for example, my passport, I have a German passport, so I can travel to almost all places in the world without even needing a visa, right? And many other people in this world cannot. And even if they are in grave danger for their life, they cannot. But they would have to get on one of these slipsy boats and risk their life in the sea. And I really think if we understand that migration will always happen and is such a vital part of human life, and that everybody should have the same rights to move freely on this planet, then this world could be a much safer and fairer and more equal place. Yeah, and I think as religious groups have maybe a very good speaking position or a better speaking position with conservative parties, I think it's really a good moment now to try to engage with these actors and try to call for freedom of movement and the same rights for everybody and safe routes to safety for everybody. Yeah. Thank you.
Doro, thank you so much for your talk, and also thank you so much for your work that you're doing at SeaWatch. As you just lined out to us, it's such an important work, and the stones and barriers and all the things that a lot of organizations, states, actors, and co are putting in your way, it's kind of unbelievable, right? Also because when you think about that, as much as I am informed, the European Union is a union that is based on Christian values, or at least says from itself that it's unilaterally going after Christian values. And just yesterday at the American Hub, we had a talk by Reverend Mark Seitz, who talked about the border situations in the US right now, which there are a lot of similarities to the talk that you just gave us. And he also made a similar statement to yours, that he said, out of a religious perspective, that this person in front of you that is roughed up doesn't have nothing anymore, not a passport, is fleeing, doesn't have any clothes. That is your neighbor that you are supposed to save and to love and to help out. Also really interesting to hear about your work in Libya and Tunisia and the barriers that you have there. What I would like to ask you is, I can imagine that although there are a lot of people, especially young people in Germany, that really support Sea-Watch and the work, I could imagine that sadly there are also maybe some forces, some actors that are not that happy with the work that Sea-Watch does in Germany. Did you maybe through your work get some, if you want to call it like that, negative feedback by people or organizations, state actors in Germany that maybe referred to the people that you are saving as people that have a faith that can't be integrated into you and into the you, and that's why you should stop that? Was criticism like criticism on the point with racism and things like that? Did you engage in things like that?
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, we are very lucky to have many people who support our work, but of course also like what's happening on the broader European and maybe global scale is also happening in Germany, and I think especially like the way migration is discussed at the moment in Germany. Of course, it's always and it has always been like the basis is always racism, right? Um, but then, of course, it is mixed with anti-Muslim narratives, and it's really like you see how then supposedly Christian values are put in place to defend racist policies and to defend politics of violence of actually like as you said like putting up borders and violence against people who are fleeing with nothing with them, and basically just saying, yeah, okay, let them drown. And this is happening from supposedly Christian conservative parties. So this is really shocking to me. Yeah.
And maybe to just briefly mention to that, as you mentioned our situation currently in Germany, that we are in a pre-election situation where probably the conservative Christian party in Germany is going to be the biggest force. I think it's also quite interesting that, if I'm informed right, I think some days or weeks ago, the representatives in Germany of the evangelical but of the Catholic Church actually criticized the party heavily for their plans, as in general for their actions when it's about migration, but for their plans that they want to integrate if they get elected. And I think that's maybe one good sign that we have from the side of religion, and that's also why I mentioned the talk yesterday we had in the American Hub by Reverend Mark Seitz, because that was interesting to me, that the religious institutions are quite engaged in helping refugees and migrants, but the political representatives or self-called political representatives of these institutions are going an extreme, like in a completely opposite direction. And I think it's really important that the institutions then start to criticize these actors. And luckily, in Germany that happens, but of course could always be more. Doro, thank you so much for your talk. Thank you so much again also for your work. And maybe now at the end, tell us and the viewers how we can follow the work of SeaWatch, and yeah, how we can stay engaged.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you can definitely follow us on social media. To be honest, I don't know the exact how to exactly find it, but it's C/watch, and then you'll definitely find it. We have an international and an Italian and a German social media presence to follow the different, or to provide information to the different audiences. And we really try in our work to not only, of course, to speak about what our crews experience every day, but also to show the system that is behind it, and to make people understand that this is a global fight for equality and for a safe world for everybody, and that freedom of movement is, in our opinion, what brings us there, like really to and the border regime and the European or the different border regimes in the world, and allow everybody to move freely on this planet. Yeah.
Doro, thank you so much for making time for us, and thank you so much for your talk. And as always, just for the viewers, our whole talk, just a reminder, will stay online. So if you still want to watch again what Doro had to say, or you just got in and you want to see, you can do that. And I see that Dr. Logeswaran is already here. It's still 10 minutes to our next talk, so I will briefly share my screen with the information, and will mute my camera, but quickly talk with Dr. Logeswaran before we start the next panel. Thank you so much, Doro. And for our viewers, we will be back in 9 to 10 minutes.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here. Thanks.
Of course.
Hi.
Hi, just a second.
Hi.
Amazing. That's just what I wanted to get up. Hello, Dr. Logeswaran.
Hi.
Nice to see you. Nice that you have time for us. Just as a quick introduction, in 10 minutes when our next talk will start, I will quickly give an introduction of you and your work, and then I will hand over the talk to you. And while you have the talk, give the talk, I will look over at YouTube if we get any questions in, and after that, I will collect them for our Q&A session. Attendance is still a little bit low, but the reason for that is that a lot of our viewers and listeners are living in different time zones, in a lot of American time zones and a lot of African time zones, and some of them also have to catch a little sleep because it's a continuing conference, and that's also why we leave all the talks available on YouTube so that everybody can watch them, and we believe that the big viewership will come in the next days. Yes.
Okay. I just have one question. I also prepare a little presentation. I just can share my screen, right?
Right, yes. Are you already able to do that?
I try. No.
Then let me make you see how I can make you the co-host, because I think that's what we need for that. Or maybe I have to quickly stop sharing my screen. Let's see.
Maybe that's yeah. That looks
Okay, then I will. Amazing. Then I will share my screen again with the picture. And then, yeah, if you want to, you can take the 7 minutes and mute also your camera, and then we can be back at
okay.
1. Okay.
Okay, see you.
See you in some minutes. So everybody, welcome back to the European Hub. We will go on now with our next talk. Our next our next attendee is Dr. Philosophical Logeswaran, and Dr. Logeswaran works at the Institute of Islamic Theology at the University of Osnabrück in Germany, and as a project coordinator for the project Fatma. Dr. Logeswaran's work takes place in the fields of anti-Muslim racism, intersectionality, critical race theory, and social work. Today, she will present to us parts of her current work in a talk called Protective Coping, why it's important to know the perspective of those affected by discrimination. In this talk, the strategy of protective coping is introduced and described. It is an empowering approach that encourages a change of perspective. Dear Dr. Logeswaran, thank you so much for joining us, and the stage is now yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. First of all, I'm trying to share the screen for the little presentation which I prepared. So, okay, just let's start. A warm welcome from my side. Don't be confused when I'm looking over the camera because I have my main screen behind the camera. So yeah, my name is Dr. Araththy Logeswaran and I'm from Germany. Currently, I work as a research staff member at the University of Osnabrück. I'm responsible for the master's program, which has the title Social Work in a Society of Migration. Yes, and I'm also part of the Coordination and Research Center, specifically involved in the task force for the prevention of Islamism. So, but today I'm here to present the research I conducted for my PhD, which I completed 3 years ago, even though it was finished some time ago, but the topic is more relevant than ever. My research focuses on experiences of discrimination, particularly the experiences of Muslim women working in social work. This topic interested me because, on one hand, social workers are dedicated to fighting against discrimination, yet on the other hand, certain groups, such as Muslim women, are themselves affected by it. So this creates a double role of them. So I wanted to understand how they balance being professionals in their work while also being individuals who are personally affected by discrimination. So my main research question was, what role do experiences of discrimination play in the everyday life of Muslim women who work in social work? The study was based on a qualitative social research. In total, I conducted 9 problem-centered interviews. The data collection took place from January 2020 to December 2020, so during the height of the COVID pandemic. I did not pre-select my interviewees at the start of the study. Instead, I choose them step by step. This was because I moved back and forth between the data collection and analysis phases, which allowed me to adapt the interim results and emerging insights. So this flexible approach helped me capture the full diversity of the topic I was studying. For the evaluation of the data, I used the grounded theory as developed by Anselm Strauss and Juliet Corbin. The goal was to generate a theory that was grounded in the data and focused on the object of the study. To better understand the object of my research, let's take a closer look. Some of you may instantly see 2 trees in this picture, while others may first notice the woman from behind looking down at the ground. This is the principle I applied to my research, taking a closer look to having a completely view about the phenomenon, what I wanted to know more about it. So now I would like to invite you to participate in a thought experiment. Imagine you are watching a security camera feed. The camera is positioned inside an elevator. You observe two people entering independently. One is a Muslim woman wearing a headscarf, and the other is a man in Western clothing. As the elevator doors close and the lift begins to move, the man turns to the woman and shouts racist anti-Muslim slurs. He is loud, he is aggressive, yelling at her. Now let's describe the woman's reaction. So she is silent, looking at the floor, not even glancing up for a second. Her entire body is shaking. She doesn't respond. Then the elevator stops. The man stops shouting and turns back toward the door. The door is open. Each person exits the elevator, going in a separate directions. So this was the situation. Now, how do we interpret the woman's reaction? Most people would say she was scared, intimidated, and didn't dare to say anything. But this situation was based on a real event, except for the part with the security camera. But I spoke with the woman who lived through this experience, and it gave me insights I could never have gained through observation alone. She told me that her whole body was shaking because she was angry. She was angry because she had to endure yet another racist experience. She wanted to slap the man in the face, but she didn't feel safe doing so. She couldn't assess the danger. After all, she was locked inside a moving elevator. If the man had pulled out a knife, for example, she would have been trapped. So her reaction, which might be perceived by outsiders as weakness and inability to act or powerlessness, actually points to a phenomenon that is not often recognized: protective coping. So what does this mean, protective coping? Protective coping is a strategy that people who have experienced discrimination sometimes develop. In essence, it is a strategy aimed at protecting someone or something. From the data, I identified three main aspects that people seek to protect in such situations. First, the person seeks to protect themselves either physically or mentally. That makes sense, for sure. Second, they may aim to protect others who are also involved in the situation. The most examples from the data was the situation where mothers protecting their children. Third, the individual may seek to protect something intangible. What does this mean? For instance, imagine a person searching for an apartment who experiences discrimination from a potential landlord. And in this case, the person might weigh how to react in a way that allows them to still gain access to the housing market. Or consider a student who faces discriminatory comments from a teacher. As a student is in a dependent relationship because the teacher will be grading the student in the future. So the reaction to the comment may be different. In protective coping, the focus is always on what needs to be protected. Let's return to the example of the woman in the elevator. She controlled her anger and did not react because she wanted to protect herself physically. The reaction is always depends on some conditions, which I identified in my research. Unfortunately, given the time available, I cannot list them today and cannot go into them in detail, but I would like to show you shortly how my theoretical model is looking like. So that's it. So you can see the protective coping is a dynamic process. It is not a phenomenon that people are born with, but it is created and constantly developed through the experiences and knowledge that people acquire. So now I will conclude my presentation. First of all, why is it important to understand the perspective of those affected by discrimination? That was one of the main questions for today. By being aware of the factors that influence how they choose to react, we can better shape our interventions and empowerment strategies. This understanding allows us to consider these factors when developing support programs. It also helps us to understand why individuals react differently in various situations. By recognizing these underlying conditions, we can potentially change factors that influence their ability to act. Furthermore, my theoretical model offers a new perspective by considering non-actions as valid forms of reactions. You know, the woman in the elevator did not express herself verbally or non-verbally, but she still managed the situation in a protective way. This shift in perspective challenges the view that non-reactions is a sign of weakness or helplessness. Finally, protective coping is a strategy that can be applied not only in social work, but also in developing effective measures for those affected by discrimination. So I have now reached the end of my presentation and would like to thank you all for your attention. And I'd like to emphasize that I've summarized a comprehensive study, which took me over 3 years to complete, into just 10 minutes. So my work is also available for free, though it is currently only published in German. So yeah. So now I'm looking forward to an engaging exchange and yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Logeswaran. That was really interesting talk, not just from a political or religious perspective, but I would say also from a psychological perspective. And I've have to say, before I've didn't really hear about theories or strategies that talk about coping or coping mechanisms, but as you lined out, so important. What I would like to ask you, or what would also interest me is you talked a lot about people that are not just put in the category of migrant people, but also, for example, in gender categories like women. And what I would like to know if you have any insights or could elaborate a little bit if the concept of protective coping is also, if you want to say it like that, a fruit-bringing way of engaging with people that had to flee a lot, with refugee people. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, maybe it's helpful when we go back to this theoretical model. So you can see that I pointed some really important social characteristics, which is influence the situation when the person making a experience of discrimination. It does matter if if people are seeing me as a woman or as a man, a female or male person, or a queer person, or if I have a disability, or if I'm young or old. All these characteristics influence how I react in the situation. Also, for refugees in Germany, they have a special situation in our society, and also they have some yes, so more or less resources to faces the experience of discrimination, which makes them more yeah, it's it's not easier for them to face the experience of discrimination, or also if the first thing what makes the main difference between refugees and not refugees is, can I speak the language? Do I have the knowledge to say the other person, this situation, this action from the person was a discrimination? So for sure, and that makes it so special on the different groups when we are taking a look, like an intersectional look. So which kind of social characteristic are the people are bringing in the situation, which one is in one situation a privilege and another one not. And so they have to find out. And I think they don't know about the protective coping, that they are able to face the experience of discrimination. The mostly thought what they have is, why I didn't say something. Yeah, so they feel guilty.
Yes.
With the theoretical model, when I present the people for some groups who are every time making experience of discrimination, I make the experience, they just get the knowledge about, oh, that's why I react like that in the different situation. And that makes so powerful of the theoretical model, because now they can have a tool. So they're getting a tool on the hand, and they can go outside and know, okay, I'm now moving in this situation, that's why I'm reacting like this. And in the other situation or other variants of situation, I can be to able to act.
Yes. So interesting, because that's the one word that you mentioned, the word of guilt, I think plays a big role also in that a lot of people that unfortunately get thrown into situations like that. As you said, the first move is to ask yourself, what did I do wrong? Although obviously you did nothing wrong apart from
Yeah.
just being existing and being here. So that was really interesting. Thank you. And maybe if I'm allowed to ask that, but if it's a little bit too personal, no problem, of course. But did you also get into this kind of research out of personal situations, or things that you experienced, maybe also in the field of academia in Germany? Um, yes.
For sure. First of all, uh, I was a young social worker. I was so motivated. I finished my bachelor, and I was like, okay, now I want to change the world.
Yes.
So I was working with refugees on in the year 2016, where a lot of refugees came to Germany, and I recognized that as a white social worker, my colleague, she made different experience than me. So when
Mm-hmm.
I go to the foreign office with the refugees, I'm the client too,
Yes.
because the people are not recognizing me as a social worker, as a professional social worker. They see my skin color or my color of my hair, and they just addressing me before talking to me, just like, oh, okay, you are a client, you have to wait here outside of the office. And I was like, no, I'm the professional social worker. I'm coming here inside the office, and I'm going to sit with you on the table and talking about the cases. And this was different experiences, which I was like, okay, my colleague is doing, making different experiences, and people are seeing in my role of the social work as a professional also other things what I wanted to understand. And that was the reason why I get back in the theoretical part and made my master. And after then, I went to the University of Osnabrück to make my PhD with this topic. And yeah, so it also was a personal experience which is motivating me to make a research to this topic.
Thank you for elaborating on that, and also because it's quite a personal question. And I like to ask that because that's a lot of the things that I hear from for example, from my circle of friends that are also from the outside world, or certain parts in Germany are not read as German people, not being put in that category. And I also heard these two different sides. On one side, the coping mechanism, but also that kind of the strength kind of that you get from it, or the empowerment if you get to the realization that you are, of course, not the problem. So thank you for elaborating on that. And it's also interesting that you mentioned the year of 2016, because that's also the year when I went to Frankfurt to starting my bachelor's. And before that, I was working for a film production company, and we were producing a video for the German Tagesthemen. And I was at the Lageso in Germany, which is a big place, and they are the ones in Berlin that have to handle the situations with refugees, and they weren't handling it at all. And in the interviews I've done with the people there who fled, I also heard a lot of the talk was about guilt, their own guilt, that they felt like they did something wrong, that they don't get the help. And while I was producing this video, me and my team, we were also talking to them, encouraging them, and then they are not the problem and they are not guilty. And a lot of the social workers that were gathered around by themselves, not from the Lageso itself, but on their own, also tried to convince them that they are not the problem. So I think it's amazing that you engage your work in that field, because it's such also an important thing to not just or over empowerment. I think it's one of the best ways to talk about these things, and to get people that are affected by all these mechanisms of hate, whether it's anti-Muslim racism, general racism in Germany, anti-feminism, all of these things that yes, that you can empower yourself also over that. Thank you so much for your talk, Dr. Logeswaran. And now for the end, maybe you done it already briefly, but maybe tell us again how we can follow your work, and or maybe tell us other things that you want us to look into or to follow, but maybe mainly how we can stay in touch with your amazing work.
Yeah, thank you. You just can follow me on Instagram. It's just like Ari and underline Bailey. Sometimes I post. Sometimes I also don't have the energy to post about the whole migration discourse in Germany. You know, it's really taking the power of the migration person in the society. So also, if you search my name, you will find the PhD. Currently, it's just only published in German, but maybe you can just take a look again on the theoretical model to understand what kind of things I tried to explain to you today. And yeah, so also on the University of Osnabrück page, there are also my published articles. And yeah, so I think that's the main channels you can use to follow me and my work.
Okay. Well, then, thank you so much for attending and lending us some of your time. I know that the semesters in Germany, especially, are coming to an end, and always the time schedules are very, very full, and we all have to learn and do a lot of things. So thank you so much for taking time. And yes, dear viewers, now we have a little bit of a bigger break before our next talk is coming in. I will quickly share my screen with the information for you. And our next talk will start at 14 o'clock, so in roughly 36 minutes. And if we are going to show it like this, yes. And now get it on full screen. Right. So our next talk is going to be by Mina Firiak, by Youth for Peace, about faith beyond borders, interfaith collaboration to support people on the move. And we will start at 14 o'clock. So up to there, you get a little break, catch catch a breath, and we will see you in some minutes. Hello, Miss Firiak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Wonderful, I can hear you as well.
Amazing. Let me first ask you, are you good today? How are you feeling?
I am doing well, a little bit under the weather because I caught seasonal flu, but I will
Oh,
be good.
oh, okay. Yeah, it's the season right now. You're right
It's
with
the
it.
season,
It's
unfortunately.
going around. Yes, it's going around in Germany too.
Exactly, unfortunately, but it's going to
Okay.
be okay.
Okay, then thank you even more for attending. Just as a quick technical question, do you need to share your screen for a presentation
That
or?
would be lovely. I prepared a few slides, so if I can do that, that would be amazing.
Okay, then I think we can also start, and I will stop sharing my screen and will quickly introduce you, and then I will give the word over to you.
Okay,
So we do that and get my camera on.
okay, I'm getting my camera on as well.
Then, dear viewers, welcome back to our next talk with Emina Firiak. Emina Firiak is a project coordinator within Youth for Peace in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and she is also a deputy coordinator of the International Youth Committee of Religions for Peace. Her academic background is in educational sciences, interreligious studies, and peace building. Her areas of work and interest are peace education, interfaith dialogue, and religious literacy. The title of the talk she is giving us today is Faith Beyond Borders, Interfaith Collaboration to Support People on the Move, and her presentation explores the interfaith imperative to welcome strangers as a shared value across diverse religious traditions. Dear Ms. Firiak, thank you so much for attending today, and the stage now is yours.
Thank you, dear Mitya, for the invitation and for having me here. It's a pleasure to come and talk to the people, even though I don't see anyone. I know that viewers are seeing us, but I will give my best not to give a lecture because I'm not a fan of lectures. I prepared a few slides. I will also share my screen just as a, I would say, auxiliary thing for me. So it's going to be easier for me also to talk, but also for the viewers to follow me. And also to be more inclusive, people can read as well, though many of the things that I'm going to say are not going to be on the slides, but still just to have it as a something to help me. So I do hope you can still hear me, and I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can hear you and we can see the screen. The connection is amazing.
Wonderful. So I have really interesting title, and I will really try to provide content and answer the question to the title, which is Faith Beyond Borders, Interfaith Collaboration and Support People on the Move. So to start this, I want to share a quote with you, which actually comes from the document on the human fraternity, which is one of the cornerstones for the week that we are currently celebrating, which is World Interfaith Harmony Week. And this quote says that faith leads a believer to see in the other a brother or sister to be supported and loved. Through faith in God, who has created the universe, creatures, and all human beings, equal on account of his mercy, believers are called to express this human fraternity by safeguarding creation and the entire universe, and supporting all persons, especially the poorest and those most in need. As most of you know, probably this was signed by the Pope Francis and the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, Ahmad al-Taib, which is, as I said, a cornerstone for the World Human Fraternity Day, which is celebrated on the 4th of February, but also World Interfaith Harmony Week that we are currently celebrating, and this event is also organized on that occasion. But also to speak a little bit more about the faith imperative, I prepared a few quotes from a few different religious traditions. I just want to share this moral imperative to welcome the stranger, even though I don't like the word stranger, but it is mentioned multiple times in many scriptures. So I will share some of these scriptures as reflections on this moral imperative, starting from the Baha'i faith, which says that we do not consider anyone a stranger, For it is said by Baha'u'llah, ye are all the rays of one sun, the fruits on one tree and the leaves of one branch. We desire the true brotherhood of humanity. And you can see the source of this quote. I will also quote something from the Bible, but I'm not going to read the whole quote. I will just refer to the last part from the Matthew 25, which says, and when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothed you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will answer them, truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these my brothers, you did it to me. Transitioning to Hinduism, Hindu religion, we find a quote from Taittiriya Upanishad, which says, let a person never turn away a stranger from his house. That is the rule. Therefore, a man should by all means acquire much food, for good people say to the stranger, there is enough food for you. Then going to the Islamic tradition, to Islam and the Quranic ayah from the Surah Al-Hashr, which says they love those who immigrated to them and find no desire in their hearts for what the immigrants were given, but rather give them preference over themselves, even though they are in privation. Whoever is protected from the greediness of his own soul, then will be successful. This is obviously referring to one very the specific event in the Islamic history, the immigration or hijrah from Makkah to Medina, but it is very relevant for all the contexts. And then we go to the Old Testament, which says, when a stranger resides with you in your land, you shall not wrong him. The stranger who resides with you shall be to you as one of your own citizens. You shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. From the Leviticus 19:33-34. And finally, in transitioning to one more Dharmic religion, we have a quote from Guru Granth Sahib from the Sikh religion, which says, none is our enemy, nor is anyone a stranger to us. We are in cordial accord with one and all. The one God pervades all, seeing whom I'm in bloom of joy. Going to Zoroastrianism. The resolute one who, moved by the principles of thy faith, extends the prosperity of order to his neighbors and works the land that evil now hold desolate, earns through righteousness the blessed recompense thy good mind has promised in thine kingdom of heaven. And finally, a quote from Buddhism. If a guest turned up at a person's home after all the food had been eaten, more rice should be cooked to feed him and allay his hunger. So in all of these quotes, from all of these religious traditions and religious scriptures, we see this moral imperative to welcome the stranger, to welcome those on the move, to welcome those who are migrating, to welcome those who are persecuted, those who are fleeing some kind of probably conflicts, or those who are unfortunately in need. So this is one of the moral imperatives that we can find across different religions. And this is the moral imperative that can be transferred into practice. And now I am offering few, I would say, things what faith communities can do. And of course, that can be immediate humanitarian support, such as offering temporary housing in religious buildings or community centers. And personally, I know a few people from Bosnia and Herzegovina, but also from other countries such as Sweden, who were offering this to the people in need, and especially those who were people on the move. Organizing food drives, providing clothing and other necessities. Of course, partnering with other institutions to offer medical checkups, psychological support, and trauma care. And of course, navigating asylum processes, work permits, and legal rights. Of course, this is not something that religious communities and faith communities can do on their own and should do on their own, but they should partner with different organizations, such as civil society organizations, relevant institutions, and of course, with those who are in charge for these processes and advocate for those on the move and help them in these processes. Another thing that religious communities or faith communities can do, and I would always say that everything what's being done should be done in collaboration, should be done in cooperation, and should be done in interfaith way wherever possible, because every faith community can do something on their own, but if they do it together, if they come up with common resources, if they come up with a common efforts, they can do much more for all the people on the move and those who are in need. Because the essence of interfaith is collaboration and cooperation. Interfaith should never become a place for competition or a corporate place where people are trying to do better than those who are like not with them. Because if interfaith becomes corporate, if it becomes competitive, it is losing its essence. And the essence of imperative is collaboration and cooperation. But unfortunately, many times we actually forget this. So it's important also to work on the long-term inclusion and integration, offering language courses, which I will just show you in some of the examples, some of the communities that do that. Job placement support, schooling, tutoring, scholarships to people, assisting with job applications, even networking, business opportunities, etc. And of course, stable housing and helping people to avoid to be exploited. Because unfortunately, very often people on the move are very vulnerable to this. And there are a lot of people who are trying to use them and unfortunately earn on their necessity. And finally, something that I really think faith communities can do, especially in the interfaith effort, is social and spiritual support and advocacy and awareness, which is in the social and spiritual support, things like encouraging friendships and social networks between locals and newcomers, providing spiritual care, interfaith dialogue, trauma-informed pastoral support. And again, this is something that should be done in cooperation with institutions and organizations who are providing it. For example, trauma-informed pastoral support can be provided, but it definitely has to be done together with psychological expert, people who are experts in psychology and people who are experts in trauma and can help this and can actually enhance this support. And of course, they can ensure that the places of worship and community spaces are welcoming to people of diverse backgrounds. And finally, when it comes to advocacy and awareness, religious communities can be very influential in societies. So they should and they can engage with policymakers and advocate for humane migration policies, and of course using sermons, community events, and even social media, because in this age of digitalization and when we are like connected through social media, we need to use it to promote understanding and to raise awareness. And of course, work with different faith groups and civil society to create a unified response. And again, as I said, working together, working in an interfaith setting, we can do on our own. Obviously, not everything has to be done in an interfaith way, but working in an interfaith way, it's much better than doing things on our own. And we have to do it for everyone. And finally, I just need to show you some kind of examples that I definitely would love you to explore, such as the organization A World of Neighbors, Goda Granar, or Good Neighbors, which is a project in Sweden. I personally want to refer to this one because unfortunately we witnessed a very tragic event which unfolded in Sweden a few days ago. Tragically, 10 people lost their lives, and the attacker, the person who attacked, was obviously motivated by anti-migrant sentiment, and he was actually shouting, "Go away from Europe." Personally, my family was affected by this because my very close cousin was present in the school when the attack happened. Fortunately, she was not hurt, but unfortunately, 10 people lost their lives, including those 2 ones from my own country, Bosnia and Herzegovina. And 2 more examples that I would like to share is something that I'm personally involved with. It's UNHCR and Religious for Peace, Multi-Religious Council of Leaders, which is consisting of leaders from spiritual and religious traditions working on the ground and helping people on the move in their own settings. The council pledged, again, welcoming the stranger resolution, which was developed in 2012 by UNHCR, and a substantial amount of money was donated to UNHCR to work with the migrants and with the refugees especially. And of course, the one very close to my heart project is the Religions for Peace campaign on the occasion of World Refugee Day, Welcoming the Neighbor, where we use these quotes from the religious traditions to share awareness and raise awareness and share them for the people to understand this moral imperative. But we decided to use the word welcoming the neighbor rather than welcoming the stranger. And of course, I'm also working on another project, which is called Scriptural Reflections and Reasoning on work on the migrations, which will be available very soon, and it can serve as an educational toolkit for religious communities to foster interfaith approach to migrations and helping refugees and migrants. And I will leave you with two questions, which are, how long should the stranger remain a guest while host remains host? When does the time come to go beyond hospitality, to integrate the guests as hosts themselves, fully include them, and create a shared community where everyone belongs? I did not find the answer to this question, and I'm sure a lot of people are also asking themselves this, because unfortunately, very often we are not able to make fully inclusive community with the people who are on the move. And of course, the second question, how do we avoid the power imbalance between those who are so-called natives and those who are strangers? And more importantly, how do we avoid the savior complex in these situations? So I hope that these two questions are thought-provoking for you and some kind of food for thought to think of them and also include them in your work. And I just want to emphasize one more thing, is that in all the initiatives that I work, we always have people who are coming from the host communities, but also from the migrant communities, because I think it's very important that we don't work for the people, but with the people. And then with the slogan, nothing about us without us. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your talk and your inputs and all the information that you got us. I will keep the Q&A session a little bit shorter because we all heard that you catch a little bit of the flu, and I don't want to put your voice in these conditions. So maybe let me ask you quickly, as you are part of the project Youth for Peace, I would like to maybe ask you if you, through your work, saw like differences in which younger people and older people are approaching these kind of topics, and maybe if you want to elaborate a little bit on that. And yes, that would be my short question.
So most of the people that I work with are actually young people, and the people that I work with, they come with different backgrounds and different, I would say, mindsets. But I think that young people are more, I would say, at least the ones that I work with, are more open towards embracing diversity rather than the older generations. We are also more, I would say, curious, because young people are more curious to explore the diversity and the world around them than the older generations. But I think that definitely depends. It also depends the way how they were raised within their primary family, within their school as well. Because I've seen some young people who hold very strong, I would say, even nationalistic, ethnocentric beliefs and worldviews that are somehow hindering them to sit with someone who's different than them and to actually start a conversation. So I think it's really like hard to say who's more open, who's more like I would say closed for diversity, because even in my country, Bosnia and Herzegovina, it depends from which part you come from,
Yes.
and it depends like if you had any kind of I would say close encounter with the people who are different than you. And I definitely come from the multi-religious country and multi-ethnic country. But it definitely depends. But I would say that I do have much more hope that young people are the ones who will be more open. But I think there has to be much more work done. And we have to start from the kindergartens, primary schools, high schools, even university. Even though working with the adults, it's always much more challenging because of the very already established values and attitudes and social norms that adults respect. But as a pedagogue and andragogue, because that's my primary vocation, I still believe that some kind of change is possible even, but it has to come from within.
Okay. And you also kind of answered my second question that I wanted to throw in, the situation or how you experienced it in your home country in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And what I also really liked about your talk is that at the beginning you lined us out all the the holy texts and books and the sources that really and you really showed us that it doesn't, like in every kind of religion and every kind of also spirituality, there is this big part of we all belong together and we are all neighbors. I think the word neighbor also is a big word that you could find in a lot of scriptures. And I also want to mention that Ms. Fidea put the word stranger, as she said, in big hyphens, of course, because that's not usually the words that we use for that. Yes, thank you so much. Maybe now you also showed us a little bit, but maybe for the end, tell us again how we can follow you, how we can follow your work, or maybe again say us what you want us to look out for, what you want us to get our focus on.
So thank you so much. So you can definitely follow the work of many of the initiatives that I'm involved with, but I would definitely somehow want to highlight the work of the Religions for Peace Interfaith Youth Committee. Especially, you can find us on Instagram under the RFP Youth, where you can find the work that we did on different topics, but especially on the topic of welcoming the neighbor. There are many other things that are upcoming, but I don't want to reveal them now. You will definitely see them on the social media. But my message for the end would be that many of these things that we see and that we work somehow seems to us like it's normal, it's ordinary, like it's completely like, we live together, we should live together, we should get to know each other, we should appreciate diversity. But unfortunately, the world is very polarized. And we see that the far right is rising. It's not rising, it's risen completely. And for the faith communities, but not just for the faith communities, but for every one of us, belonging to the religious community or not belonging to the religious community, we have to widen the interfaith. We have to welcome everyone in, not just people who are belonging to the organized religious communities. And our response to the polarization has to be unification, has to be going beyond differences. Of course, being aware of those differences, not obliterating them, but coming together and trying to put all our resources together and reiterating and saying these things that are so common, that are so normal, like living together, understanding each other, and things like that. And every small step counts. Social media post counts because it's saying what you are actually advocating for. And it's important that we somehow create alternative narrative to all of these negative narratives that we are somehow surrounded by. And I think it's just important, if you see people in need in your own community, reach out. If you need help, reach out. Get to know the religious communities, the groups that are in your own society, especially if you belong to the majority religious group. Reach out to the minority religious group, because majority religious group is always privileged. It's always in a better position than the minority one. Reach out and try to see how you can work together, because I'm sure there will always be some things that we can work together on. We are not going to agree about everything, and that's not the aim of the dialogue at the end of the day. But be curious and meet your neighbors and give a chance to the human beings, because at the end of the day, we are all human beings, and violence against anyone is not going to resolve anything, even among those who are perpetrating violence against us.
Thank you so much for that closing statement. Really like that you that you put the focus, especially also on that doesn't belong if you're part of a faith community or not. We should work together. And thank you so much for attending. Thank you to put us in your schedule. It was probably really full because it's the end of the semester and everything is always full. And also let me offer some condolences, as you just mentioned. Your family wasn't harmed physically, but that's still a terrible thing to happen to yourself. And I hope that everybody at least will get well soon, quickly. And again, thank you so much for attending. Our next panel will be with Laila Hassan Dapu, which I think is also a colleague of yours, right? a little bit?
Leila and our colleagues, and we work together very often. So I'm sure she will offer you some interesting insights as well.
I'm sure of that too. And our next talk will start at 15, so in roughly 36 minutes again. I will again now cut my video and share my screen with the, there it is. So as you can see, we will see each other back in roughly 30 minutes. Take a quick break, catch the breath. Let me cut my audio too, and then we will see us again in a few minutes. Thank you so much. Hi, Laila, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm good too. We will start in 8 minutes, so we still have a little bit of time. Just let me ask you a quick question. Are you doing fine? Are you doing good today?
Yeah, everything is
Okay.
fine. How about you?
Also, little
Good,
bit.
good.
I'm starting to get to lose my energy just a little bit because we are coming to the end, but I'm looking forward so much to your talk. So, also a quick technical question. Are you going to have a little presentation for us?
Yes, if
If
you
I
allow
remember.
me to share the screen, that will be good.
Okay, yes. Then when we start, I will stop sharing my screen with our thumbnail, and then you will be able to do that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I saw that I have option to share it. That's fine. Yeah,
Okay,
it will
amazing.
work.
Good. And just as a quick heads up, I will quickly introduce you and your work, of course. And then after that, you are free to correct me if I missed something, of course. And yes, then you will give us your amazing talk. And while you do that, I will collect questions if we get some from the YouTube channel for the Q&A session afterwards. And yes, that's how we are going to do that. And one other thing I wanted to say is, yeah, the attendance is a little bit low right now because we have a lot of viewers on this conference from the different American and African time zones, and some of them have to catch a little bit of sleep. So the big viewership will come in probably afterwards. And so just that you know. And yes, if you want to, we can take the 6 minutes. You can take a breath again. Also cut your camera if you want to, and then we could meet again on 15 when we are going to start. So in 5 minutes.
Yeah, everything sounds great. I have short presentation, practical one oriented on the project that you're working on. Yeah, so I hope it will work out and someone will benefit learning
Problem.
something about it.
Amazing. We also just had a talk, I think, with one of your colleagues, Emina Firiak.
Yeah, exactly. It was interesting. I didn't know. We just saw on a program that both of us will be there because so many things are overlapping. So we try to discuss among ourselves, not to repeat. And for me to focus on some different aspects and her on some different one. But I'm sure that he did amazing work with presenting her part of the work.
Yes, she did. It was a really, really nice talk. What I really especially liked about her talk at the beginning, she lined out from all the holy books and all the holy scriptures that you can find in every religion, in every kind of spirituality, the word neighbor and how we have to live in peace and solidarity and love with our neighbors and the people besides us. And that's something I really, really liked that she lined out that that is something that is the basis in every kind of faith and religious aspiration. I really, really like that about her talk. And yes. Okay, then you will hear
Great.
from me back in 4 minutes, and then we will start the talk. Okay.
Great. See you in a few minutes. Thank you for everything.
So, welcome back, everybody, to our last but surely not least talk for the day. We are joined now by Laila Hasandidic-Dapo. Ms. Hasandidic-Dapo is a psychologist, psychotherapist, lecturer, activist, peace builder, and volunteer from Bosnia and Herzegovina. Currently, she is doing her PhD in psychology at the Ankara Yildirim Beyazıt University in Turkey. She was a URI Youth Ambassador, and since 2013, she has been working as for the United Religions Initiatives as a Europe CC liaison officer. Also, she is the co-founder of the Youth for Peace, an organization that positioned itself as one of the most prominent youth-led organizations in Bosnia and Herzegovina, working in the field of peace building. Her talk for today is called Belonging Beyond Borders, Interfaith Solidarity and Resilience in Migration. And this talk highlights the role of interfaith efforts led by United Religions Initiative, the URE, and the Religions for Peace, especially the Department from Europe, in fostering resilience and solidarity in migration contexts. And now, dear Mrs. Hasandidic-Dapo, thank you for joining us, and the stage is now yours.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you for all who are watching right now and who will be watching this presentation. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending from which part of the world are you joining us today. Greetings of peace, and it will be my pleasure to share this short presentation around some of the practice that are done or has been done on the grassroots level. So I will be sharing my screen to show you small presentation that I prepared for today, and I'm looking forward for follow-up discussion later on. So I hope that you will be able to see my screen and that you are able to see the presentation. And yeah, so what I decide to name this presentation together with the theme of this conference is Belonging Beyond Borders, Interfaith Solidarity and Resilience in Migration. And thank you for a really nice introduction about my background and work. So when we are talking about migration, it is very important to mention that we all are aware and know that in a world where migration has become a central issue, due unfortunately so many ongoing wars, conflicts, but also climate change and a lot of socioeconomic challenges, the response to migrants and refugees and displaced individuals define the moral fabric of our society. And there is where our morality comes in, but also interfaith work and faith-based work become very important and has a central point when we are discussing about it. So in this talk, I just shortly would like to address what is the role of interfaith efforts in the context of migration. And when we are talking about it, it is important to mention that the increasingly interconnected world in which we are living right now, where migration is driven by conflicts, as I already said, environmental changes, but also economical disparities, interfaith efforts become essential in fostering inclusive, harmonious, and resilient communities, which we are all striving to achieve. As people move across the borders, they bring with them diverse cultural and religious backgrounds that sometimes we forgot, because people are not just moving, but they are also bringing their culture, their faith, their religion, their spiritual background. And all of this can lead to the challenges when it comes to the integration and coexistence in what we like to call hosting communities, or communities in which those individuals found their place during or after migration. And interfaith initiatives provide platform for dialogue, for understanding, for collaboration, and also they can play a very important role in helping bridge gaps, but also address the complexity of migration. They can help both those individuals, but they're also playing a very important role in hosting communities, both in the context with the work of faith-based organization, interfaith organization, non-governmental organization, but also governmental organization and governmental bodies that are taking care and making the policy around hosting those migrants, refugees, and displaced individuals. Interfaith organizations that I will be using as example right now, since I'm familiar with their work and I'm closely working with them, are United Religion Initiative, which is the largest grassroots level interfaith organization that is working in more than 113 countries, and they are having more than 1,200 groups all over the world. So you can imagine that they are working both in conflict areas from which migrants and refugees are moving, but also they are present in hosting communities. And the second one is, I think, well known to all of you, Religion for Peace, especially the European branch, which is one of the oldest faith-based organization that is bringing together both religious leaders, but also women of faith and youth of faith, which I was mainly working with, and they play a crucial role in promoting empathy, respect, and cooperation among both host and migrant communities. And by fostering meaningful conversation between people of different faiths, they break down stereotypes and also combat discrimination, which is very important when we are talking in the context of migration. And those faith-based organizations frequently act as a first responder, which are usually offering humanitarian assistance, and they are creating networks of support from these people. Those faith-based organizations and also faith-based institutions like mosques and churches are usually first who are responding when migrant crises arrive, but then later on they also play a crucial role by hosting these people, by helping them adjust to the new environment, the new community, and later on by creating sustainable projects that will be helping them fully integrate into a new community in which they are arriving. But they also play another role. They're helping hosting community or community in which those migrants and refugees are coming to adjust to the new people, and instead of developing more stereotype and prejudice, to become more open and to open space for the dialogue and understanding in a spirit of welcoming everyone, because as my colleague in a previous speech highlighted, we are all neighbors in the end of the day, and we are all here to support and help each other in the world in which we are sharing and living together. So we are all neighbors, and we should welcome each other in a spirit of our faith beliefs. When it comes in some examples of the project that these two and other faith-based organization and interfaith organization are developing and working on when it comes to the issues of migrants and refugees, I would like to highlight a few of them. First of them are different workshops, which are both done for migrants and for the hosting community. Those workshops are focusing on raising awareness of the issue of migrants and refugees, but also awareness of the overcoming prejudice and stereotypes by the local people in local community. Then there is also workshops about religious literacy and interfaith dialogue, who come really handy into the place of especially hosting communities, how they can create meaningful and safe space for the dialogue, for interaction, and for raising awareness about people who may come from completely different faith background than majority of the people who are living in a current hosting community. And they are also organizing, as I said, different workshops in that regard. The second project that United Religion Initiative is doing is Resilience Series, in which they try to boost aspect of the resilience, both to the hosting and to the welcoming communities. Then different no hate speech campaign, because we know that unfortunately hate speech is so prevalent and huge issue, especially when it comes to the migrants and refugees who are coming to the new countries. And lastly, violence prevention campaign, because together to the hate speech is very well unfortunately connected raise of the violence, and usually religiously based violence against those who are coming as refugees and migrants. Okay. So when it comes to the resilience and empowerment, it is very important to mention that resilience is at the heart of migration experience, because those people are resilient ones who decide to leave their home country for seeking better life or for trying to protect themselves, their well-being and their health. And faith-based organizations play a crucial and vital role in helping those migrants and refugees rebuild their lives by fostering resilience and empowering them as an active contributors to the new communities, because we can learn a lot when it comes to the concept of resilience from those who are coming to the host countries. Also, maintaining their cultural and religious identity, that is where resilience, especially community resilience, come very well. Resilience and empowerment are also working a lot on values that are brought by the refugees to the hosting community. And those resilience work are usually including trauma healing workshop. And I was doing some of these, having my background in psychology. This is trauma-oriented peace work, in which we are trying to help and to welcome those refugees and migrants who are coming with different traumatic experience to our groups and to our society and to the hosting countries, how they can adjust to the new environment and how we can help them overcome their trauma, and how trauma and healing can help them to learn more about resilience, to be more resilient, and how this can help hosting community to learn on examples of those refugees and migrants. And one very successful project conducted by United Religion Initiative, especially European branch, is called Resilience Series publication named Community Resilience. So as probably majority of you know, there is different aspect of resilience. There is individual resilience that each of us are having, but there is also what we call community resilient, or how community may be resilient. And in that regard, we are using examples of individual resilience of those migrants and refugees who are trying and fleeing from their countries to the new communities, how they can help new communities building resilience in order to accept them, but also to empower them to start their life, and what we can learn from their experience. What we did in this publication is that we first conducted bunch of workshops in different communities, and then we collected the stories of positive practice that can empower communities who would like to welcome and host resilience and refugees, what they can learn from their experience about community resilience, what are some examples of the positive practice, but also what are some challenges that they were facing in that regard, how they can understand resilience and a concept, and why individual resilience is equally important as a community one. So this publication serves as a very good tool. It can be found on a URI.org website, and it is available for everyone. It is in a digital format, and it contains stories not just from European region but beyond about concept of community resilience, both in the context of refugees and migrants, but also environmental crisis and youth work. And there is a lot of stories how we can learn about building individual and community resilience, and how this can help both hosting community but also those individuals who are seeking help and support as refugees. So this is example of one very successful project, and we are developing it further. Now we are working on a mapping of all this resilience initiative in interactive map, which will allow all of those who are interested in learning more about both individual and community resilience in the context of interfaith work, that they will be able to reach out to those who are working in this field, and they can learn more, exchange their ideas. And I hopefully that this will help those, especially working with the migrants and refugees, to help them build their own resilience and build community resilience of the hosting countries. Another project is very important one, and this is addressing hate speech and religiously violence, and this is done both by URI and Religion for Peace in different contexts, but we are unfortunately aware that hate speech often targets migrants and refugees, and this is targeting their vulnerability and hindering their integration. And we know that addressing hate speech is very important both in online and offline context. And I want to highlight it here that we are focusing a lot on offline hate speech and offline religiously motivated violence, which is very visible, but we know that there are different aspects of violence. It can be both physical, but it can be psychological as well. It can be targeting someone online and offline. And don't forget that online hate speech can become offline and can lead to the hate crime later on, and then also it can further develop into religiously motivated violence. So it is very important to be aware of online hate speech that may happen, and that we need to address and to combat and offer alternative to the hate speech. What we did in that regard is, together with European Interfaith Youth Network, we developed, based on example of the Golden Rule poster, we developed what we call No Hate Speech Rule poster, where young people from different different interfaith organizations, but mainly from the European Interfaith Youth Network, come together and they share examples from the religious text and religious books, because in all religion they are imperative not to hate, but to welcome others and to combat all aspects of violence and hate. And this poster is used as a very good tool, both in educational purposes, in faith-based, in interfaith work, but also in different kind of the workshops and non-governmental as well as governmental work. It is also available online, and I would like to invite all of those who may be interested to consider using this as a tool, because this is very good tool for interfaith work when it comes to the combating and offering alternative to the hate. And then lastly, what is important to mention is aspect of hospitality and building inclusive communities, where faith and interfaith organization are playing very important role, because as we all know, hospitality is universal value deeply rooted in religious tradition, and it is central to the work of different interfaith organization. So for migrants and refugees, hospitality is not just about them providing shelter and a safe space, but it presents much more. It is also by creating inclusive communities where they will feel valued and respected, and where they will be able to thrive. And this is the role of all these faith and interfaith organizations. So to conclude my today's speech, I want to mention that migration challenges us to reimagine our shared humanity and to take collective action, which is rooted in compassion and justice of our faith beliefs. And interfaith organizations, such the one that I shared their example, like United Religion Initiative and Religion for Peace, exemplify how collaboration and dialogue can foster resilience, how they can combat hate speech, both online and offline, but also how they can create inclusive communities when migrants and refugees will thrive. And please don't forget that migration is not simply a movement of people, but it is a movement of stories, of hopes and aspiration. I want to thank you for listening my presentation and to invite you to visit URI.org, URIEurope.org, and religionforpeaceeurope.org if you would like to find more inspiring stories and projects, if you would like to collaborate or just get inspired and learn something about great interfaith efforts of all these organizations on the field. Thank you, and I hope that I was in a time.
Thank you so much for your talk, and yet it was in time. We don't have to worry that much about time when it's when we hear such an amazing talk. Thank you so much. What I really liked also about your talk, a little bit similar to your colleague Ms. Firiak, is that you again, like her, showed us the basics of that hate speech is forbidden also in every religion, every type of faith, and that you showed us that. That I think was really beautiful. And maybe for the Q&A session, what would interest me is when you talk about community resilience. I also talked with Ms. Firiak a little bit about the differences with younger and older people. And when we talk about community resilience, and especially communities that are inclusive, is that something that, or are there differences that you observe too between young people that are engaged in this work and maybe a little bit older people that are engaged in the work?
Yes, very interesting question. And yes, this is something that we observe. I'm coming mainly from the younger, not necessarily youth, but younger perspective, working with the younger people. And it is honestly much easier. They are much more open. They are much more prone to use new technology, to widen their perspectives compared to the older folks who are coming from more traditional background and who are more rooted in a political aspects, and they are seeing different perspective in that regard. So what we are trying to do is that we try to overcome this gap by creating what we call intergenerational dialogue, in which we first try to bring young and older people with the similar views from the similar faith background to build this intergenerational dialogue between them before offering their inputs to the topic of, for example, in this case, refugees or migrants or others. But there are definitely differences, and I'm happy that young people are much more aware about hate speech, about online hate speech, offline hate speech. They are much more prone to reflect on that, to react, while older people are not seeing that as a big issue, and they are more focusing on a political and on the policy practices on a governmental one. But I think by bringing them all together, we can learn a lot, both from the older people wisdom and experience, and younger people more curiosity and openness for something new. that has been offered.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for that answer. And you kind of also went into my second question that I have because I wanted to ask about younger people, especially when it's about online hate speech, the hate speech that is on the social medias. And there, my question maybe would be, so I think it's not false to say that younger people are way more aware of hate speech that happens online. And maybe it's the case maybe that older people maybe don't even neglect that there is online hate speech, but just can't maybe grasp the impact of it because younger people are of course way more engaged with social media. So maybe because the a little bit older generation is not that much on these social medias, is that maybe a reason why or a possible reason why they don't see maybe online hate speech as a big problem? Because as you said too, online hate speech quickly becomes hate speech in the real world and also transforms really quickly to physical forms of hate and violence. So yeah, that would be a quick follow-up question from me.
Yeah, you're definitely on the right track. I think that what we saw in this intergenerational dialogue that we have is that older people are unfortunately not aware about huge impact, and they think, okay, what you write online will stay there, but they are not aware that this is very deeply impacting all individuals and that it can create negative atmosphere about different group of the people, like some migrants and refugees who may come to the community, and then they get surprised why some young people or others react so violently in offline world when they are not aware that this can be just results of the online violence as well. While younger people are much more aware about policies of different social media in which they can report, they can react, they are aware, and they are aware that there are policies. But for older people, they usually use excuse, oh, this is like virtual world, virtual reality. This is not affecting necessary offline because they are not fully aware of it. And sometimes they say, but yeah, this is just freedom of speech, freedom of expression. So they think it is perfectly fine if you share something, but we are using this to raise awareness and to say no, there is a huge distinction between freedom of speech and freedom of expression and abusive behavior and hate speech, and definitely hate speech is not staying usually online. It's unfortunately just starting and used as a target for something much worse that may happen offline, and we are unfortunately witnessing it. So we are happy that more and more people are aware and we are using this examples, and we also want to raise awareness among religious leaders and religious communities, because I know this may sound very controversial for some of the viewers here, but there is a lot of religious leaders who are consciously or unconsciously also starting the hate speech and the negative narratives, and we want to create alternative narratives, and that is the reason why we created this no hate speech rule based on a golden rule poster highlighting importance that in the base of all religion and all faiths are good, are positive things, and they are against all form of violence. So religious leaders should be the first one addressing positivity and against all aspects of hate and violence, and not be the one who will be supporting, not to go using other words, but at least supporting this kind of the violence.
Yes. Thank you. And maybe a quick follow-up on the online hate speech. Just if you are able to say something about it. As you maybe also knew, since Elon Musk took over X, formerly Twitter, a lot of things changed over there at this social media platform. And now I think it's safe to say that Mark Zuckerberg also with Facebook or in whole the Meta concern made kind of a step also in that direction. Do you think that concerning online hate speech that these changes of rules and online laws, for example, if you want to call it like that, are going to increase the hate speech online that we are already seeing?
Unfortunately, yes. I think that it will just like give space for more hate speech, and especially I think this will be especially negative in the countries where it is not very well organized in terms of the law on government. Like for example, we were doing a lot in the context of Balkan and Western Balkan and Bosnia and Herzegovina, from where I'm coming from, and we don't have any law in the country, so we were relying so much on all these policies that were in place. And Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and all the social media. And now with removing them, we are basically without any any tool to say, but see, this is the policy, you should not behave, or at least you can you can apply some of these. So I think this will become a big problem, and I'm not happy to see development of this, because I think it will just negatively affect more online hate speech, and we unfortunately witness that more online hate speech are leading to more offline, more violence, and then results are just negative ones. So unfortunately, yes.
Okay, but still, as you said, important to talk about and think about it too, what's coming in the future. Laila, thank you so much for attending our talk today and for your input that you gave us. I know you already did that briefly, but maybe tell us again, how can we find you? How can we follow your work, stay engaged with your work, and maybe also again, tell us what you or where you want us, the viewers, to lay our focus on when it's about the topics that we talked about.
Yeah, so thank you for the invitation. It was my pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for a very nice follow-up question. As I mentioned at the end, in the last slide of my presentation, I would like to invite all of you to visit URI.org or URIEurope.org. Those are United Religion Initiative and United Religion Initiative Europe websites, where you can find a lot of resources like the one that I was talking about, community resilience, but much more work on combating hate speech, campaign against the violence, and all other things. And there is a lot of initiatives that viewers or whoever is interested can consider joining, or joining organization itself. We have different membership options, so it is all free and all people are welcome to join. And the second one that I mentioned that I'm affiliated with is RFPEurope.org. So I also want to invite our colleagues to visit website to see materials like the poster that I showed to you, and to learn more about the project on combating hate speech, but also all other projects that I know my colleague Yamina mentioned as well. So this is an invitation for you. And yeah, as I said at the beginning, just don't forget, when we are talking about migrants and refugees, those are not just numbers. Those are not just a group of people coming from somewhere to our community, but those are people with hopes, with dreams, with inspiration, that from which we can learn a lot. And instead of building more stereotypes and prejudice and hate and violence, let's be more welcoming, in a belief, in a faith that we are all sharing, and let's show our hospitality. Let's welcome those people, and let's welcome them as neighbors, and let's create positive atmosphere for all of us, and let's together build better future for all of us. So this will be my message and invitation for all of those who may be watching this right now.
Thank you. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you for those warm words for closure. And yes, dear viewers, the first day of the European Hub now comes to an end, but we will be back tomorrow starting 12 o'clock, same like today. And I want to thank all my attendees today, Dr. Jimenez, Dorothée Krämer from SeaWatch, Dr. Logeswaran, Emina Firiak, and Laila Hassan-Didic Dapo, and their amazing inputs for this conference. Also, I want to thank all of our viewers who are here right now, and everyone who will watch this panel in the future, of course. Now, I want to invite you to the first global recap of the Fratelli Tutti conference, which will start on YouTube at 16 o'clock, so in roughly 32 minutes. You can find it also on the Fratelli Tutti YouTube channel where you are already right now, under the section of all the live streams. It's upcoming and you can already open it. So thank you so much